Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Patrick Stiles. Patrick Stiles is, kind of a first act actor. He is a musical theater performer, was a musical theater performer, dancer, singer, now massage therapist, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. And we have a wonderful discussion about balancing that career. He has a young family as well, too, balancing that. He also has an incredible, early life story about his life in the theater and what that looks like for him now. Please enjoy the lovely, the incredible Patrick Stiles. Story. How did you go from massage therapy into acting, doing both simultaneously?
So I actually started as an actor in musical theater. So I went to Randolph Academy for the Performing Arts in late 90s. And then I had a career as a musical theater performer for a long time, up till 2006. I was working pretty steadily. And then I got an injury and couldn't dance for a while. And that was my bread and butter. So I was getting treatment on my injured ankle, and massage was the most helpful. And I thought, you know what? I can't dance for the next 6 months. I'm kind of over this business. So I went to school and became a massage therapist. And then I thought that I would go straight back to theater and just do massage on the side. But then massage became more of a bigger thing. And then I did do simultaneously theater work and massage. It was actually really great to take a few months off here and there to go do a contract. And then probably 2015, 2016 was the last show I did. And then I was supposed to do one in 2020, which got canceled because of COVID. But it was early 2020 when I thought, you know what, I can't dance anymore. My body's too old. It's so fun, but it just hurts too much. So if I want to be taken seriously as an actor and do more acting and singing roles, I need to invest in all that class. So so then I thought, well, if I'm taking acting class, I might as well try TV film. Never really gave it a shot before. So that's where I started, and I'm just loving it. It's been almost 3 years now of being in class. I'd say probably every week on average. And I have a new agent who's awesome, but it's just so funny. I've booked a few non-paying student films, but it's a hobby you love when you're just I'm giving this my all and spending all this money because I do want to make money at it. You made me laugh so much in one of your podcasts when you were talking about taxes. And I think your accountant said something so here's all your expenses from acting. Where's your income? And you're just that's rude or something like that you said. Because it's so true. But, you have to spend the money and invest the time and get better. And I just love the process. So now it's I'm more focused on acting, but massage is definitely what I do in my day-to-day and pays the bills and allows me to take classes and stuff like that.
When you were growing up, were you the theater kid? Is that what propelled, were you performative? Is that what propelled you into musical theater for post-secondary?
I was into band. I played a lot of instruments and I sang in the choir, but no real formal training outside of playing piano and sax. And then I played piano for a ballet studio all through high school, for the ballet classes. And then I played in a pit orchestra for a musical, just our local community theater show. And I just remember thinking they're having way more fun on stage than I am here playing this piano. And I was really actually pretty shy in high school. So I didn't even take a drama class till probably grade 11. And I was so green, no clue. But yeah, that's where it started. That's how I got exposed, was through the music part. And then I just thought that's way more fun. And so it was kind of interesting going into the career as a singer dancer who hadn't been training since I was a kid. Because I feel TV, film, acting, you can pick that up later in life. But dancing, it's I would not be working today as a male dancer. Back in the day, the standards were so much lower, because of So You Think You Can Dance and stuff. guy dancers have to be really freaking good too. But at the time, I was getting lots of work and I just was having the best time. I didn't care about any responsibility in any show. I didn't want to play a lead. I was just having the best time in the ensemble. And I mean, if someone was like, okay, you come up with your own count of 8, it stressed me out. I'm like, no, tell me what to do. And now that I've got more into acting, I'm like, I've done a complete 180. I want to make my own choices. I want direction, yes, but like I really value that being like more of a creative artist now, whereas back in the day I felt like a fun little factory worker helping the show to happen. I think I got off on a tangent there, but
No, I love that analogy. That's really interesting. And like, so do you think that's like, what is that age, like great wiseness and maturity has brought this mindset shift, or is it training, or what do you think?
I think it's, oh geez, probably training, probably age. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Probably just training because I never really trained much as an actor. I did in college a bit, and I remember I loved it. It was actually my favorite. But then it was so easy to book jobs as a singer dancer that I never gave it a second thought. And I'm sure I got like worse and worse at actually like speaking lines, being believable. Because it's not, you do have to like act when you're in a show in musical theater, but if you're in the ensemble, it's not quite the same, you know? So I think it's probably a combination of both, like age and getting wiser and training.
I've been told, and let me know what your thoughts are, that it is much harder to go from theater to film and TV because it's really hard to learn as a big person trying to project to the back of the theater to go small, where it's a lot easier for a small person to go big. What do you think, and what have you noticed about now your transition to film and TV?
Yeah, interesting question. One of the places where I take class, there are a lot of theater actors there. A lot of theater actors that are in the same position as me that really are more interested in doing TV film right now. And I remember my first class in TV film was like, yes, too big, too much facial movements, all the things. But I feel like there's definitely technical elements that you have to figure out. But really, it just comes down to like, am I talking to someone that's a foot in front of me? Or am I talking to someone that's at the back of like a huge theater? That's kind of what it comes down to. And then I think on camera, like it just picks up absolutely every tiny little thing that sometimes, you know, as Lewis talks about, which I love, you just have to have the thought and the camera picks that up. Whereas theater, you always feel the need to show, right? So I think that's been my challenge, and maybe other theater artists going to TV film, the need to show your work, the need to show that you've got it, show that you understand what you're talking about, whereas opposed to just like being in it and trusting the camera. I think so. It definitely is a challenge, but lots of people do it, and I'm hoping that I get to do it too. And then going from film to TV, I don't know. If anything, I find, like, I mean, Broadway stars do it all the time, right? But a lot of times, some of those theaters are actually smaller theaters, so they're not like humongous 2,000 people theaters. And you can have like a famous TV film actor in the spotlight center stage, and it's almost, I think, as intimate as film. Maybe not. Maybe I'm making that up, but. Yeah, if anything, maybe a TV actor going to theater might be like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah, and I remember Kiefer Sutherland. I knew I was going to remember the name. He did a play in Toronto a while back, and I remember the reviews were like, he's acting just from the neck up, because that's all he needs to do in film and TV, especially in like some of the incredible shows he's been in, like 24. He's just literally, it's here.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, like not knowing what to do with your hands. And it's funny that you say that, because my film and television training, my acting training, to be honest, has been through Zoom because I started in the pandemic. So my training has been this box. And then I started doing improv and theater in person and was like, yeah, what do I do with the rest of my body now that we're in person for theater? Yeah, because film and TV, that's
Yeah.
great. You plant yourself, you ground yourself. Nobody cares what your body's doing. But as soon as you're on stage doing improv, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do with my hands?
Yeah. And I think honestly, every theater actor also has moments when they're like, what do I do with my hands? 100%. It's not just a new thing for film going to TV, it's everyone. Um, and I love, honestly, in TV film land, I love that it's here. Not that I would ever worry about what to do with the other. I think honestly, a lot of it comes down to like being self-conscious over like, I'm bloated today, or like, I don't know, stuff like that. I don't know.
And I wonder if that, like, that's kind of, not to get like, we can get sociopolitical if you want, but, you know, kind of growing up in an image conscious uh, industry, right? Dance, musical theater, you know, kind of constantly thinking about that because it is part of, you know, you're judged on artistry and how your body is.
For sure. And some of my favorite actors in theater that I can think of, like they don't give a fuck about any of that. You know, there's no room for them to be self-conscious in their work when they're on stage. They are just like they're in it. And that's what we love to see, right? Because it's like they're displaying all of everything that they are out there. And I think coming from a dance background, you gotta like suck it in, hold yourself up tight. You know, your breathing is very apical as a dancer, as a dancer. So yeah, no, I think theater actors really, you have to have like the full body, like, here I am.
And they talk about, you know, grounding. I say they, you know what I mean, but like the overlords of the industry, like kind of grounding and being in your body. Do you feel that your dance experience has allowed you to excel at that sensation of planting and getting yourself in tune with how your body's sensations are feeling, like the thoughts that you need for now film and TV?
Probably. But I remember having a coaching and this guy who I love, David Connolly's his name. He's an awesome director, actor, coach. And you know, he wanted me to like, it was an up-tempo like song. And I was like, just supposed to be like living my best life, like at a party, like full on dancing. And I still have such a hard time with that, even as a dancer, because I'm not a dancer that would go dance in a club. You know what I mean? A lot of dancers are, but some aren't. Some are technically trained and like I said, like tell me what to do and I'll do it to the best of my ability, 8 shows a week. But making stuff up. So I think the acting is actually helping more with that to be less in my head, which allows me to be more in my body. Because I think, I don't know, people think, yeah, you're a dancer. Of course you're in your body. But I don't know if I have an easy time with that. I feel like the acting is helping more. But I'm weird.
That's super interesting. I was just talking to a former professional ballerina turned actor. And she danced professionally in New York for many years and now has retired and is finding a really interesting, not only just transition from, you know, and I wonder if you feel the same, like retiring from something at an age when not many other of your peers have retired, you know, because you're like, my body is now saying you're done. But yeah, now moving into acting and kind of looking back at her career saying, man, I wish I had done more acting training because I think it would have benefited my ballet because of exactly what you just said. It's fascinating.
100%. I sang this song recently that I was considering doing for like an audition that I went to. And I hadn't sung it in a while. And there was like an A flat in it. And I always just felt like it was never great. And I hadn't focused on singing in a while. I was just doing acting, doing Meisner stuff, which I loved. And I just went at the song from an acting perspective, which is what you're always meant to do. But I finally just did it. And vocally, it was a non-issue. You know, I got out of my head and just let my body do what it wants to do naturally when you're having those thoughts and relaying that story. So that was a cool experience. Could I mimic that like 5 minutes later? No, I went back to cacking on the note. So there's still more work to be done. But no, I think for sure the acting like really helps dancers, and especially like ballet, like, you know, it's just so technical and so precise. Sometimes you feel like there's not even room to like take a deep breath.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And I didn't really do ballet, but that's sort of like a lot of ballerinas that I know. It's like, no, you don't like take a big breath and let your diaphragm push down and let your like stomach hang out. You just don't do that.
Your gut hang out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you find that you have brought anything from your massage therapy training and now practice into your acting career?
That's a good question. I think, I'm not sure if this is 100% going to answer what you're saying, but it is something that I think is related. I've always felt very competent as a massage therapist. I had good training, stuck with the program, hustled at the beginning of my career, like did exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm very happy with where I am. And I've always felt competent. Since day one of graduating, I felt confident, competent, and always willing to learn and grow and all those things. Never had like a sort of superiority complex over anyone or anything. I'm just like, this is what I do. I'm good at it. How can I even be better? And then I'm like, I never felt like that as a performer. And so I think that made me realize, like, if I can have that level of comfort as an actor, that's why I'm taking class all the time. And I'm starting to get there. Like, I'm starting to feel just more competent, which helps with grounding, which helps with just being and doing all the things. So that's one thing. I think like maybe body alignment and stuff, like body awareness, sometimes like I think everyone has a tendency to like slouch and stuff like that. Like just being aware of like how to be like anatomically, musculoskeletal speaking is maybe helpful. I don't know.
I love what you said about competency because that made me think about my own career. And as soon as you started talking, I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Extremely competent and hustly. And there's something about acting, and I think it's because there are some people out there who don't need to train. They are just naturally gifted actors. And I'm sure there are dancers out there, there are singers out there, right? And so there's this weird mind thing that I know I do that I keep thinking training will make you competent as an actor. This is no different than becoming a doctor. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, my mind is saying, if you're not naturally good at it, you're never going to be competent. But then the other side of me says, look at how much you've changed and improved with your training to become competent as an actor. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this weird, I think it maybe is the creative careers, right? Where there are some people who are like, well, if you're not naturally talented at it, sorry. But no other job says, yeah, you were naturally born to be a doctor.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I love my agent right now. She is all about like, she demands that everyone on her roster is in class. I mean, she deals with a lot of dancers. Dancers are always in class. Actors, I also think it's healthy to take time away from class sometimes for sure and let things absorb. But if I look at my self-tapes from like when I really started auditioning like a good year and a half ago, and I'd be mad that I didn't get like the first thing. And I'm like, well, it was just bad. There was nothing good about it. Like maybe if they wanted to hire someone that was acting bad in that particular situation, I could have got cast. But, and I think for me, coming from musical theater and being a perfectionist, which I've learned is like not good. We need to embrace the imperfections, right? We need to like strive to be good at what we do and to get better and continually improve. But I've realized being a perfectionist is not the compliment that I thought it was. And it's like done a disservice for me as an actor. So, where was I going on that tangent? I forget where I was going. Oh, yes. Unlearning habits, right? Like I've created so many habits in order to come across as what I think of like being like perfect, which is unattainable anyway. So I think for me, that's where training is coming in. I have so many habits to unlearn, to just be.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like your training in musical theater, I think is similar to like the training in lots of other jobs where you do need perfection, right? Musical theater, in my very limited experience, is very regimented. Even though it looks on stage as fun, even though it is fun, but it's very like you have to meet your mark. There's choreography. It's very perfectionist. The same in dancing, right? And in medicine, you can't embrace your imperfections because people
Exactly.
die.
Yeah.
So unlearning those habits is so difficult. I think, especially, I know as I get older, it's tougher to do. But when you do it, I don't know about you, but I find it so satisfying that I learn something new every time I do an acting class about how to do that. And again, that's the training towards competency.
For sure. Because you're not, if you're cast as a doctor, you're not necessarily playing Janet like the perfect doctor that's going to make sure you say that. It's probably more about what's going on in your life. And no one's lives are perfect. People's lives are messy. So we've got to embrace that part of ourselves. It's really cool. One thing I remember in a class I took recently with Steven at LB Studios, he did an exercise. He's like, I'm going to give you all like 5 or 6 notes. After one take, we're going to go through it, and then I'll give you all your notes at once, and then you'll do it. And it was interesting. It was an interesting exercise because I got in my head, I remembered 1 or 2 of the notes, but maybe not the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And because I come from theater, it's like when you get a note, like you have to fix it, right? It's like you have to hit that mark. Your hand has to be like, I don't know, like this, not like this. And so I come from that background where a note means fix it. They want it perfect next time. But he made a good point. It's like, you got to take the notes, but you've also still got, I forget what he said, but it was so brilliant what he said. It was a really good lesson in terms of TV film. You get the notes. You can't get in your head if you don't remember every single note. You just got to take the general tone, maybe reiterate to the director, okay, so you're thinking this, okay, great, and go for it. But you can't be so focused on showing that you understood the note that you forget to just be moment to moment. So that's interesting transition from TV and film to theater.
Yeah, I remember a similar experience with Lewis, and I'd gotten some notes from a class maybe a year ago, and I don't know about you, but like I remember most of the constructive criticism I've been given as an actor and trying to like internalize it, right? Again, because I remember the notes I've been given because I want to fix them.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Lewis after doing a scene and being like, yeah, well, I've been told that, XYZ is something I need to work on. And I was really trying to do that in the scene. And he was like, Janet, relax. Like that was a year ago. Like what worked then, it's not the same today. You're a different person right now. You're in 2 seconds, you're going to be a different person than you were 2 seconds ago. Like the chemicals in your body are different. Your thoughts, everything is different. Like, oh.
Yeah. His whole analogy of like, you never step in the same river twice. Right.
Yes.
And it's interesting from massage perspective too. I find this with clients all the time. One day there might be like a muscular imbalance or something's off or asymmetrical, or maybe one day I'm even like, you got a little bit of like a functional scoliosis going on. And then sometimes it's fixed. And then, they carry that with them for years. Scoliosis. And it's like, no, you did one day. You did one day because you were probably sitting like this for a long time or something, but it's, we change. And I think it's so important. And I'm going to take that with me in massage land too. And, remind people that like, yeah, you have this injury, but it can be fixed. Your body can adapt and you can improve and move past it. And then it's no longer a thing. It doesn't mean like 2 years down the road, that's your criticism, that your body is flawed in some way because you fix it and you move on. And then something else comes up.
That's so great. It's funny. I never made that. This is my issue, is that I have such a difficult time blending my two worlds because I just, in my mind, I think of them as so different, as like science, arts, and never the two shall meet. But that's a lovely thing to think about, that, yeah, absolutely. Like talking to your patients about that. Like it makes sense. Again, oh, I love that. I gotta write that down.
Do your patients love that you're also an actor? Do you ever have to like cancel days last minute?
I practice I practice sports medicine,
Yeah.
which is the ultimate first world medicine, as
Yeah.
you'll understand, right? Like, oh, I'm sorry, your elbow is going to be a little bit more sore for the next 24 hours because I have to cancel, the day. I have very, very understanding patients. Most of my patients think it's just a riot. I've had patients come see me in plays and not tell me, and then come see me the next time and my appointment be like, I saw you. I have had one, no longer my patient, complain that I should be working more as a doctor. How dare I go do acting? I should be more doctoring. Because, how dare anyone have a life outside of their job? That was very, again, a very rare thing. But of course, we always think about 100 nice patients you'll delete everything 100 nice patients said about you, because you'll only remember the one horrible thing somebody said. But that's not a reflection on me. That's a reflection on them. So
Yeah.
yeah. How about you?
Yeah. Oh man, back in the day, it was when I worked at a busy multidisciplinary clinic. It was crazy because I was booked months in advance, booked solid, and then sometimes I'd get a show last minute, and I'd be like, I'm gone for 3 months. And most people were like, "Oh, that's so exciting," and they would come see and they'd support, and it'd be awesome. But you'd have some people that would get so mad they refuse to see anyone else I referred them to. They'd wait till I get back. They'd throw such a huff about it. And the more contracts I did, I appreciated those 2 or 3 months away because I'm just like, need to clean shop because like I don't need people like that just feel like they're like so controlling of my life and my time. And so it was difficult. And there's no way I could have done TV film back in the day, especially having to go to Toronto for auditions so last minute, and even like being on set so last minute. There's no way I could have made that work. But now I work at home and I have mostly like athlete practice and really great people, clients, and I only book a month ahead. And they're all like, they're the people that just think like, yes, of course you need a life outside of your main job. Yeah. They're good people. So very understanding. Like I had to cancel my day today because of my little fainting episode and my neck has whiplash, and my daughter's at home sick today too. It's like a trifecta. But anyway, so it's been, I really like it right now, and I love self-tapes. I like the odd in-person audition, but and also the fact I work from home. If I have like half an hour off between clients, I painted a wall, and I could easily do a quick little thing if I needed to. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's really good right now. But years ago, it was tough for sure.
Has there been anything that has surprised you about the entertainment industry?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, well, I guess if anything, I've realized that casting directors are our friends, and that it's a business, and with the agency as well. Like, I never really thought about that too much. When I was younger and doing musical theater, if I didn't get cast in something, probably because I had a bad audition, then I'm like, oh, that casting director hates me. And sometimes it's true that I may have wasted their time in front of like a big panel of people because whatever, I had an off day or was sick. And back in the day, you showed up anyway and you tried to sing through it, and you can't say you're sick because whatever. So back in the day, I definitely felt like it was an us versus them type thing, and I had bitterness around that. But I think it has been surprising lately to realize that like casting directors are fully on our side. I think they're human. They realize that we have bad days, and they have positions to fill, and they need our help getting that done. So I think I just have a more like positive outlook on the whole industry, which is kind of shocking because there's probably a lot of bad things to say about the entertainment industry. But I've learned that recently. Like I love auditioning. I used to hate it. I resented it. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm not going to get it. And now, like, since I've been with my new agent in last August, I had 72 auditions, and I booked like, I know, and I booked like 3 student films, like nothing paid with my agent yet. I feel awful. I'm like, and I told her once, I'm like, I just feel so bad. Like I'm doing my best. I keep getting better. And she reviews every self-tape, and she's like, we're very happy with you. You're doing all the right things. Just a matter of time and figuring out exactly like what breakdowns are the most appropriate to submit you for. So I think that's been surprising in TV film land. it just feels a little bit more positive than my experiences before, and a little bit more collaborative. And everyone kind of needs everyone to be their best selves and to work together to make it happen.
Where did that come from? Like, was that a discovery for you?
Yeah, I think like even like listening to your podcast with your agent,
Aw.
who she sounds a lot like my agent, like very business. Like when she's like,
Yes.
you know, I'm sure you have like mental problems sometimes. I don't need to know them. And I'm like, my agent would love to say that to me if she could. I'm sure. There was one time I'm like, I know you don't care about like my emotional issues over this business, but like I had so many auditions last week and like this, it feels like my phone doesn't work. Like it's so sad, but you know, not their job to do that. Yeah, so your podcast, and I've taken a few casting director workshops, and I think I met you on one of them with Jeb, right?
That's where we met. And so I'm going to interrupt you because I saw your background and there was like the same like MSK posters that I have in my office. I'm like, who is this man?
All right.
I think we'll be friends.
Yay. Those posters are currently gone because I needed a blank wall, so they're on the floor and I don't get to look at them anymore. Yeah, so doing those courses really helped as well. Yeah, and just really, I think it's partly helpful that there are often so many auditions, and I submit myself to every student film. I just want to be busy auditioning, and everyone is an experience and a good little challenge. And so yeah, so I've been submitting myself for a lot of extra stuff I know I won't get paid for, but just the volume of auditions, it's almost laughable how many I've done without getting paid and how much I've been in class without making any money off it. But I don't know, it somehow makes me love it more. We're weird people.
It's interesting. I remember somebody giving me the analogy about Survivor, the show, and how, yeah, we do so much, and it's really hard to invest so much of your soul and mind and energy and time into these tapes that you send off into the ether, and then you get ghosted. Like you literally never hear and you're like, that's me. I've put out into the world and I've been ghosted by the casting director. But I remember somebody saying, all you got to do is outlast everyone else. Because for a lot of people, that's too much. And I don't blame them.
No,
it's rough.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think if, you're not getting booked for stuff, but I'm hoping, and maybe I'm completely wrong here, that one day some casting director is going to see that like my agent submitted me for something. So I'm like, oh yeah, Janet. Oh, she's still around? Oh, cool. That's great. She's still kicking. Good for her. Because I heard the rate, it's like, I can't remember the percentage, but the amount of actors who start and quit after like between 1 and 5 years is something like 80%.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised, but that's why you got to love it. Like if I didn't love it, like I stopped performing in musical theater because I did not love it. It was, and now I miss it, and I wouldn't mind. I'm totally open to going to do a show again. That'd be great. But yeah, no, it's not for like the faint of heart. Is that the expression? No. But the other thing I really love, the odd in-person or Zoom edition I've done, I love those because I leave and it's done. When I do a self-tape, I can like watch it back a million times, even after it's submitted, and then be like, oh no, I could be more specific in that part. And but I'm getting better at just doing it, having so much fun with it, figuring out exactly what I want, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and just doing it. And it's funny because the more I've done too, like learning lines used to be a struggle. I feel like that's not even a thing anymore, which is weird.
Training to competency, right? It's like learning the muscles, insertions, and origins. I never thought I would be able to get that down, right? But you do it over and over again, and it becomes your training, like you're training.
Yeah. And that's one of the skills that we need. And I don't know exactly how I've gotten better at it or just have less anxiety over learning lines. It's just, I think it's from Meisner actually was really helpful. Focusing on your scene partner, focusing on the whole story. I used to just write out my lines and was so stressed about what they were. And now I focus on what the other person's saying. And Oh, and Lewis said something. Lewis is so smart. He said something once about replace the fear of not knowing your lines to the thrill of having them come to you.
Oh man.
Lewis Bowmaner. I did not make that up. But that really, really helped me because every self tape I've watched back, when there is that moment of fear and I don't know what comes next, and sometimes I've like cut it myself because I'm like, I don't know. That's always the most interesting to watch. When I watch, I'm like, why did I cut that? Like, that was the most interesting part of the tape because I didn't know what was happening and I was trying to figure it out.
Because real life, we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what we're going to say next, right? So,
Yeah.
that's so good. That's terrifying because, again, that's the, it's the unfamiliarity. I love scripts. I love algorithms. I love, like, word perfectness.
Yeah.
But there's nothing quite like that feeling. And I'll never forget the first time I felt what everyone feels as an actor of like being in the moment and finishing a scene. It was in one of Michelle's classes at LB.
Right.
And not knowing where I was or what had happened. And being like, did I say the lines right? She's like, doesn't matter. That was amazing. Right? Like, how fascinating. And how thrilling. We don't get that, I think, in our day-to-day lives, really.
I know. That's what's so exciting. It's like our outlet, right? When we have to, there is like right and wrong answers with our other work, right? And this is so freeing because it's not like that. Yeah. And again, back to like perfectionism, I used to like make sure I had to be word perfect. And that's still my goal for sure. But I'm not going to like completely write off a take because I paraphrased a couple words when maybe it was actually way more nice to watch, you know?
Do you have any advice for anyone interested in starting a career in acting or balancing a career in acting with another job?
Oh man, well I think having another job is key to your finance. Like, I mean, if I didn't have another job, how would I be taking classes and headshots and making a demo reel and being able to do things for free because I want that experience, you know? So yeah, having another job is great with some flexibility. And like, I don't know, I've loved every single class that I've taken. And so it's really hard to know like where I would start. I think probably like the hardest where I had to commit the most was probably either like Meisner with Sean Benson or there was like a scene study intensive with Jane Moffat. And those were not on camera classes, but those teachers and everyone in the class are like film actors. So I thought it was interesting because it's not at all anything to do with the camera. It's just to do with like moment to moment work. And I really liked the Meisner. I feel like it was game changing for me. But that's because I had certain habits of saying lines certain ways and getting in my head as opposed to like putting my focus on my scene partner. So for me, like that was really helpful. But for other people, if you don't have any bad habits to unlearn, like any on-camera class, like LB or I Love Lighthouse as well with Angela, there's so many. I haven't had a bad teacher. They're all so good. But just start.
Do you have any favorite on-set or on-stage moments?
I like, honestly, probably the biggest highlight was a show I did. I did it in Russia and the national tour of it. It was called 42nd Street, so a huge tap musical.
Oh.
Yeah, and I remember like I didn't want to go to the audition. I'm like, I don't want to go to Russia. You can't even be gay there. Like I'm gonna end up in jail.
Golly.
But went to the audition, stayed all day, missed like a family event for it, got there late, and they're like, "Oh, where were you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was auditioning for this thing." And I said, "I think it went well. I think I got it." And they're like, "Oh, what is it?" I'm like, "Well, if I do get it, like I leave for like Russia next week for like a year." It ended up only being like 4 or 5 months, but that show was like we had bomb threats. Just like there was another show going on in Moscow at the same time that had like a hijacking from these Chechen rebels and people died and people were calling us from home and they're like watching CNN and they're like, "Oh my God, is that you guys?" And like we're watching the news and it's all in Russian. I'm like, "I don't know. It's not us." Anyway, so that whole experience, the show was incredible, like full orchestra, huge cast. And then the national tour was also fantastic of that show. But I just loved those experiences, like living on the edge. I remember one day we didn't have our places call yet, or maybe even 15 minutes. And it was like time to go. And we're like, what's going on? And the stage manager comes on the tannoy, and most of the cast was Americans. There were maybe 10 Canadians to like 50 Americans. And this was a year after 9/11. So Americans from New York City were like very on edge about a lot of things. Whereas the Canadians were more about like, what's this adventure we don't get in our Canada? So the stage manager came over thing. She's like, ladies and gentlemen, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. I remember this guy beside me like was out. He was out of the dressing room before she even said what was going on. And he was on a flight back to New York the next day. And I'm just like, do. And she's like, stop what you're doing, leave. Theater's getting evacuated. Bomb threat sushi was across the road, and that's where we'd all convene. And so that whole experience was just incredible. Like I just love adventure, and I lived through it, and it was fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I should write a book on that.
Yes,
it was
you
a
should.
Fun experience.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that is the story you tell around the campfire for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah, it was fun.
Would your family describe you as an actor these days, or how would they describe you?
That's a good question. They know what I'm up to. But like at Thanksgiving, one of my uncles, I was telling him like I was in a class doing something. He's like, oh, what's new with you? I'm like, oh, I'm taking this class. And he's like, what, you're teaching it? I'm like, no, I'm taking it. And he was just so confused. Like my immediate family, my parents, like they know I'm into this. And I think it will help to show them some footage of something I've done recently to say like, oh yeah, so this is what I'm up to. Because I don't think they really get it. But extended family, like they don't get it. Like they don't get how I've been in the industry technically a long time, but I'm doing something completely different within it right now. So there's a totally different focus, and I don't think they get why I'm taking class and not teaching it.
Do you think it's an age thing? Like, at a certain age, people are like, "Why are you learning something new? Haven't you learned all the things?"
100%, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, they can't say, why don't you get a real job? Because I already have a real job.
Yes.
But and that's like so annoying. So annoying. Acting is like the realest job out there.
God.
Actors are so resilient, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's probably an age thing. And I just, with massage and with acting, I'm just like all into the lifelong learning.
I remember having a conversation with someone, and she was an actor, a fashion designer turned actor. And it was kind of like a therapy session because I didn't realize this about myself until she said it. And she's like, well, yeah, the reason I wanted to do acting is that I like learning things. And when I finished all my education, I realized I wasn't learning anything anymore. And that was a huge contributor to her burnout. And I was like, that is me. You know, I've been in school since I was 3. And then because I genuinely like it. Right? Like
Yeah.
and then when I finished my sports medicine fellowship, and you kind of enter into the real world, you hustle and you're doing the learning, continuing education, but there comes a point where you're like, I'm done with the learning, I'm just so tired. But then there comes a time after that where you're like, man, I miss the learning. Why am I feeling burnt out? And it's because there's the no learning of the new things. I like a sponge. I just like new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it's been a while since I've taken continuing education as a massage therapist. Like I really need to focus on that this year coming up because I've been doing all the acting stuff. But yeah, no, it is interesting to juggle both careers because I don't know about you, but well, our college changed everything. So we don't actually have to do any more continuing education.
Lucky.
Well, but I enjoyed it because
Yeah.
I love taking courses, and without the requirement to do that, granted it's been the pandemic and I refuse to do a virtual massage course. Like no.
Yeah.
Like I always want hands-on, like active release technique or cupping, or I might do fascial stretch technique later, FST, yeah. I need that hands-on stuff because that's what I do. I can go on the internet and look up other stuff if I feel like I'm lacking academically or knowledge-wise or something.
Well, I think there's probably two types of people in the world, right? And it's neither of them is negative. It's just there's people who say, they don't want to learn new things, right? They can't even like fathom like going to learn going to like a ceramics class or like learning Spanish or anything like that, because they're happy with what they've already learned, and you're like, good on ya. But yeah, and they just can't really understand the people who say, I want to learn how to do X, Y, Z now. Like, oh, but that's weird. Okay, shouldn't you be teaching it? Right?
I'm like, believe me, no.
No, right.
But I find also like learning new things, especially with acting, keeps me feeling younger.
Mm.
If there's ever been a time in my career, either or both of them, where I wasn't continually evolving and learning new things and kind of like in the rut of just like, this is my job, I just go do it, I immediately started to feel my age and older and usually often bitter too. Like, I don't know, just being open-minded to learning new things and all the great people you get to meet doing any acting class. It's amazing. And yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, it just gives me life.
I've definitely thought about that. And I love the people that I work with in the medical world. We have been through a lot these last couple of years. And,
No kidding.
but, I never would have met some of these artists if it wasn't for acting. And it definitely expands your world. And I remember being told, and again, this is probably a Lewis quote, like acting and art are the only things in this world that bring about genuine empathy, where you are learning so much about other people and other ways of thinking, other mindsets, other cultures, other backgrounds. And there's not much else in this world that can bring about empathy, which is, I think, super powerful.
Yeah, which is why maybe in my experience, I find actors in musical theater or people I met in TV film are generally like positive, open people because you spend time putting yourself in other people's shoes, which is so cool.
It is so cool. It's so cool. And it's a privilege. It's a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any final words of wisdom, words of advice?
I guess just like keep training, and if you love it, that's enough. I think I'm sure that I've told people when I didn't get an audition before or I didn't book that job that I thought maybe I had a really good shot at. And I feel like even like close friends have been like wanting to say like, maybe like that's enough. Like maybe it's time to give up, but if you just got to be true to yourself. Like if you love doing it, keep doing it. Despite what other people think or say. I mean, I think generally people are supportive of people doing what they want to do. But I think some of my closest friends, when they see like the ups and the downs and like the highs and the lows and the like, they're like, why are you doing this to yourself? And there's days when I wonder that too. But, and then one person, this is my last bit of advice that I learned from this actor that I did a student film with. Her name, I forget her name, but she said like, I like to set some completely ridiculous expectation. Like if I book 1 in 200 auditions, would I still want to do this? And if the answer is yes, great, keep going. And that actually helped me a lot because, now I've booked a few out of 72. And I don't even care that they're not paying. They're great quality demo reel footage. They're amazing roles that I would not get hired to play right now. So yeah, so things like set like a just ridiculously high bar to achieve or to not achieve, and be like, if would you still do it if? And if the answer is yes, then just keep going.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Patrick, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story. You are such a gem, an absolute gem. And I cannot wait to work with you soon in the near future. Oh, is the suspense killing you, everyone? Patrick and I might finally get to work together. I'm thrilled. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I hope you will join me next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye! Second Act Actors is produced and edited by me, Janet McMorty. Theme music by Guillaume, additional sound editing by David Studio, additional video editing by Jackie Wadoer, show notes written by Sarah Hopkinson. I record using Riverside FM. If you're interested in developing an interview-based webcast like mine, I highly recommend this platform. Shoot me an email and I'll direct you to the wonderful folks there. If you or someone you know is interested in being a guest, email me at secondactactors@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. My love language is words of affirmation, so compliments, constructive criticism, and feedback are always welcome and encouraged. Negative Nancys, Judgy McJudgersons, or Debbie Downers, unless you're Rachel Dratch, regarding me or my guests are not welcome. It takes serious courage to share your story with the world, so if you're tempted to negatively comment about someone else's story, please ask your therapist why you're such a garbage person. Save the drama for the stage. On that happy note, I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!